What's up, guys? This is Alex Christopher with the Duran, and I'm here with Peter Lavelle, host of RT's Crosstalk and editor-in-chief of the Duran, Alexander McCurse. And today we're going to be taking a look at the connection between Russiagate and social media censorship. All right, gentlemen. I'm just going to make a statement, and I want both of you guys to elaborate on it, to comment on it, and to dig into it. And here's my my theory. Maybe you can call it my conspiracy theory. Maybe you can call it my observation, whatever you guys think. But I see it like this. The minute Russiagate started to happen and Hillary Clinton made her announcement about 17 intelligence agencies and Russia election meddling and Russians are bad, and all of the mainstream media started hating on Russians, we started to see a ramp up in social media censorship, especially when it comes to conservative right. Shadow banning, banning of Alex Jones and deplatforming Alex Jones, attacking conservative right pundits, all these things, we started to see them, and they all kind of happened around the same time. I want both of you to just dig into this topic and really, see if there really is a connection between Russiagate and the social media censorship that is now front and center in the United States. So, Alexander McCurse, Peter Lavelle, take it away.
Because I'm in media in a big way. I think really what it is that Russiagate is so convenient because there's no constituency for Russia in the West. The images and the prejudices are long and very much embedded. But what's interesting to me is that the media and the deep state, they miscalculated the 2016 election. Mm-hmm. And in many ways they see, and they're kind of right in a way, and for different reasons, is it because there is alternative media, Donald Trump was able to reach out to so many more people. He avoided the filter. Mainstream media have common cause because, well, they want their monopolies back. And the bombshell of 2016 showed, and we're seeing it every day, more on like a Fox, is that how corrupt the deep state is and how biased it is and how politicized it is. They want to put the cap. They want the curtain to come back. It was remarkable on NBC. Some talking head was saying that, well, Facebook should be shut down for the next 3 months before the midterms because of Russian meddling. No, but no, it's not because of Russian meddling. It's because social media is way ahead of the skis of mainstream media, and they don't like that, okay? And so Trump is kind of an epiphenomenon to all of this, really. It has everything to do of getting it back to the status quo, okay? And the tool that they use to beat everyone is Russia, because it's not really about Russia, okay? If Russia really attacked the United States, then let's go to war. They're not going to go there. It's a rhetorical tool. Alexander, what do you think?
Well, I agree. Can I just say straight away, Russiagate and the attack on social media are two sides of the same coin. And in my opinion, and I think it mirrors exactly the point you're making, it's ultimately about control. They lost control. The political system lost control when Donald Trump became elected President of the United States, and the political establishment, which, to be very clear, includes the media also. The media in the United States and in Britain and in other Western countries is very much a part of the political system. They sense that they are losing control of the media space because all sorts of people using social media are now, for the first time, able to express their views. So people are getting news raw and unfiltered, no longer controlled in the way that it was. So these two things came together. There was a sense of a loss of control, and there has been a massive pushback to try to bring it all back under control. Firstly, by bringing social media under control. Secondly, by boxing in, discrediting, perhaps ultimately impeaching and removing Donald Trump, restoring the status quo that Peter was talking about. And who are the people that you justify all this around? What is the great excuse for doing it? Well, you bring in the Russians. These people who are far away, who can be made to look as sinister as you like, and who are the bogey from the time of the Cold War. So you have all this coming together in this extremely ugly and dangerous way, and we're seeing this attack both on the outcome of an election, which is, of course, an attack on the fundamental principles of the US Constitution.
Absolutely.
And on the outcome, and on the expression of free speech in the media, which is, of course, another attack on the principles set out in the United States Constitution in the First Amendment. And it's all being done in a way which I find extremely sinister, as a defense of democracy, when, of course, what it really is an attempt to restore an essentially oligarchical elite control on the system, which is the opposite of democracy. Peter, back to you.
No, Alexander McCurry, this is going exactly the way I wanted it, because Alexander McCurry is absolutely right. In the process of clawing back this power and the status quo, they're destroying institutions left and right. They're destroying the concept of freedom of speech. They're destroying the concept of rule of law, apparently, and it's becoming very, very obvious. And it's just not at Fox. But there are two tiers of justice, okay? Some people get a free pass, and others don't, okay? And it's becoming glaringly obvious. I mean, Paul Manafort faces 300 years in prison for something, a tax evasion case of 2005, 2006.
No.
I mean, really? And see, and this is becoming very obvious. The more they try to claw back, the more they destroy the institutions that they claim to covet. Yes. And this is turning into a real crisis. And so there is no turning back. But will these people that perpetrated this soft coup, are they going to be held accountable? See, this is where it gets really sticky, because we're looking at Brennan, Comey, Clapper, Morell, all these, Peter Strzok, Lisa Page, all of the the infamous people now. I mean, if you're going to put Paul Manafort away and destroy Carter Page, then these people have to be held accountable. The power that be won't do that. That's one of the reasons why. And I love Jeff Sessions, and I think Jeff Sessions, the Attorney General, knows that if this becomes fully blown exposed, it's going to be a breakdown of these institutions. I think that's why FBI Director Wray is soft-pedaling all of this, because he sees the whole organization that he is running is so corrupt at the top, and he has to somehow clean it out without destroying it. I think that train has left the station here. These people are terrified of being exposed for their deep, deep corruption. And I think if you go back to the book Shattered that was written about the Clinton campaign, Clinton is, I'm paraphrasing here, is that, if they find out what we have done, we're all going to hang for this. I mean, this is a quote. I'm paraphrasing here, but they know that once people see it, then you keep pulling the drapes open and let the light of day. This is what they're terrified about, and that's why they need Russia, Russia, Russia. It's like, look over there. Don't look here. Look over there. Okay, and it's patently obvious on CNN, MSNBC. They want to concentrate on these other stories. Don't look over there. Don't. Okay, even though these are court documents, these are affidavits. We're looking at other charges being made against people in the. It's like Bruce Orr. Why is he there in his position? Because they can control him still, because he's an employee of the FBI. All right, and see, all of these things are happening, and you can read the Hill, Politico. You're not going to get it on mainstream media outside of Fox. They know this train wreck it's happening, okay, and they're all terrified, because I'm waiting for the first person to start singing and then to start composing, and it's not going to be Paul Manafort. because what they've done to him is so disgraceful. And I'm not a big fan of lobbyists like that. Okay, they're all kind of slime balls, like the Podestas. Okay, they're all of the same ilk for me. Okay, but it's going to be who's going to be the first one that's going to start cooperating and say, well, I know this whole story. Okay, and it goes right into the Obama White House. That's when it's going to be a house of cards.
Well, indeed. Can I just say, Peter, I mean, my own personal view about all of this is this attempt to regain control that we are talking about is guaranteed in the end to fail. I mean, you cannot control the kind of media that exists today. And people have got a taste for it now. People have got a sense of what it's like to operate in a free media space, and they will rebel against it. There is a famous expression, I think it's by Voltaire, who once said, when the people begin to reason, all is lost. And I think what we have now is a situation where the people have begun to reason. And I think one of the strange things is that all these attempts to sort of regain control, to impose what is essentially censorship again. I mean, it's not essentially, it is censorship again. Yep. These attempts to, as I said, overturn a presidential election outcome. What they are actually doing is they are accelerating the collapse of the political system which is launching these attacks. Because people out there are not unintelligent, and they're now very well informed, and they're able to put two and two together, and they're able to see what is going on. Some people, of course, will be fooled for a while, but more and more people are not, and more people are questioning, and they will always find places they can go to, and media where they can get their views. And however tight you try to draw the controls, it is going to be impossible to keep it up unless you go all the way and establish a full-scale totalitarian system, which I think would be extremely difficult to do in the West today. But I think that would be impossible.
But
it's going to fail, and as I said, it's going to accelerate what I am starting to think is an inevitable collapse.
And to kind of answer an element of Alexander Christopher's question about social media, you look at Twitter and you look at Facebook, because they're in cahoots with all of this, they're destroying their own business model in the process. Okay, more destruction, more carnage. Okay, because Facebook is being shown for what it is. It's a tool of the deep state, a willing tool also. People know this. I mean, on my news feed, I mean, the anger against this platform that we're all talking about and on, people notice it. They know what's going on. They know people that are being shadow banned, being banned, their content being taken down, and we can all talk about it. And if they want to shut all the conversation about that, then all you're going to get is puppies and flowers and pictures and memes, and then you've destroyed the platform. You've destroyed it, okay? You can't have it both ways, all right? And we've talked about this exhaustively, okay? But see, this is how social media, they helped in a great way to help Donald Trump get elected, because he went around the mainstream. But now they see that what they've created they cannot control, and the more they try to put their controls over it again, the more they destroy their platforms. It's very interesting what's happening.
Indeed. Can I give a historical example? I mean, it's what happened in the 16th century when printing appeared. I mean, people were starting to print books all over the place, and you had a massive reaction from the authorities. Books were burnt. In Spain, the Inquisition was set up. All sorts of things were done. But in the end, I mean, they couldn't control it. And of course, the social media of today is a revolution of a very similar kind. And again, it is beyond control, because if you destroy Facebook, if you discredit Facebook, somebody's going to create something else. It is easy to do nowadays. I mean, there is no magic about this. And it doesn't even require vast resources to do. I mean, you don't have to have the skills of an IBM to do it. I mean, you know, of the 1960s. These are relatively simple vehicles to create. The only reason Facebook has the monopoly, acquired the virtual monopoly that it did, is because it got there first. So people went to something that already existed previously. But if Facebook makes itself unusable, and the same goes for Twitter, other people who are going to be more resistant to this kind of pressure that Facebook has been under, they will start to emerge. And in fact, they're already doing so. And then what do you do with them? Do you go after them? How do you go after them? And of course, the United States is not based everywhere. It's not all over the world. So, I mean, you will find places within the United States where people resist it, and you will find places outside the United States where people will resist it. So, as I said, it is impossible to do what they have done. But, and this is important also to say, in the meantime, a lot of damage is being done.
Yeah.
A lot of people's reputations have been ruined. A lot of businesses are being badly hurt. And just as with the attack on printing and on the printing press in the 16th century caused many losses for many people, this, unfortunately, there's going to be many, many losses before the final understanding is realized. The penny drops amongst the elite that this game is, that the battle is already lost.
If I could just follow up on this real quick, Alexander McCurris is absolutely right. Not all the things that he talked about are being destroyed, but public trust is being destroyed, and this is the greatest casualty of all of this. This is the weapons of mass destruction in Iraq 2003 over and over again on steroids. Okay, public trust in these institutions, if it's social media or the government, is collapsing right now. Collapsing. It's no coincidence that you have this Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez coming out. I don't agree with her politics, but people are saying she's saying something different. Not like the rest of these clowns here. This is the fragmentation that's starting here.
And so before we close this segment out, I'm going to ask you both the same question. I want you to comment on it. I want to get back to the destruction of the social fabric of the United States. And then I want to ask a question about how Americans are now viewing Russians. And so the first part, and I'll go to you first, Alexander, is do you believe that all of this censorship is causing a very deep and unrepairable divide in the United States between left and right? And so you're seeing very, very entrenched and very firm divisions and stances between both the right and the left, and the social media censorship is magnifying them. Do you think this is going to be something that can be repaired? And this is an even simpler question. After you answer that first one, do you think that this hysteria against Russia is causing Americans and the institutions in the United States to be actively and openly racist against Russians? And Alexander, I want to go to you first, and then I want to hear Peter's answer to this question, and we'll close out this segment with this.
I have never known the United States to be as divided as it is now. I'm not even sure anymore that it is a left-right division, because it seems to me it is perhaps even an elite versus the people division increasingly. And that seems to me to be an extremely concerning thing in the United States. And given what an important country the United States is, I can very easily see how those divisions are not only going to get greater, which I am sure they will, but I have to say, I think for the first time, given the way Americans are now talking about each other, I would actually have fears about violence. I mean, some of the things that have been said about Donald Trump make me very concerned for him, frankly. I mean, given the kind of things people are saying, and if certain actions are taken, I can easily see how this thing could explode. That's the first thing. Now, on the question of Russians and the question of the Russians being used as a bogey, and how this is now seeping in to representations of Russians, this is something I have to say that has been concerning me personally for a very long time. I've written about it. I wrote about 2 years ago a long piece on the Duran about this. Russians are today the only target, the only people that you can be racist about and still be respectable.
Right.
I mean, the things that are being said about Russians, the way Russians are being depicted, for me, the closest approximation is to the kind of anti-Semitism that existed in Europe before the Second World War. I mean, Russians are represented as being immensely powerful, incredibly conspiratorial, completely evil, money-minded. There's all sorts of other ugly things. I mean, as I once wrote, even the fact that Russian women are beautiful is somehow supposedly sinister because they are temptresses. And if you go back to anti-Semitic propaganda before the Second World War, people said exactly the same things about Jewish women then. So it is an extremely sinister thing. It is all over the place. It is in every newspaper, every established newspaper now in Britain. You will see Russians represented in a certain way and Russia talked about in a certain way. And I think that Western societies which claim to be anti-racist, but where a form of racism is being used now almost as an organizing principle for politics, which is what we're seeing, are in a very bad way indeed. I mean, even more dangerous towards Russia. This kind of thing is dangerous for Western society itself. And I think that also it is invariably the case when a nationality is depicted in the way that Russians are, sooner or later, we're going to see demands for violence against them. That is the consistent pattern of this kind of racism. And given what Russia is and the power it has, that is extremely dangerous indeed.
You know, the interesting thing for me, and just kind of add on to what Alexander Makiris had to say, is that this form of racism it really goes into the category of not knowing what you don't know. And when you put that out there, it creates paranoia. And this is exactly what it is. It's paranoia. And this is what unites the political elites. And it seeps into the popular culture. Because it was already there, it's just being pumped up. It's not going to achieve anything, okay, whatsoever. Because the equation is very, very simple. If Russia and Russians are such a plague on the planet, then you have to do something about it. The Soviet Union saw fascism in Europe as a plague that had to be exterminated, and it was. Okay? So, I mean, you can't play around with this caricature forever. Okay? I watch the cable news. I mean, if some of these people, these nutcases had power, we would have the Third World War. All right? And so, I mean, there's no downside, unfortunately, for being racist and bigoted towards Russia. You can always be wrong, and you'll fall up the ladder in your profession, particularly in journalism. And that's a real discredit to journalism and to social tranquility. I mean, Alexander Makiris is absolutely right. I mean, look at this poor young woman, Maria Budina. I mean, at least I think it was The Onion that kind of showed the absurdity of it all. They had a headline, a fictitious satire. Maria Butina slept with all 62 million supporters and voters of Donald Trump to get him elected, okay? Which, of course, is their form of satire. You know, she's a temptress and all of that. It's purely destructive. It doesn't get us anywhere. And you know what, gents, in our audience? Donald Trump is a mortal human being. He's not always going to be president. And I have said for years, particularly since the Ukraine crisis that was generated in the West, is that how do you walk back all that's been said? How do you walk back these things? How do you wipe the slate? You can't.
No.
You can't do it, at least not very easily or quickly. And so what I take solace living here in Russia is that the allure of the West isn't so great anymore, okay? People don't believe in the great shiny lights on the hill, okay? When Russia and Russians are insulted 24/7, every single news cycle, they've had enough, okay? And, you know, when it comes to struggle, they remember the Second World War, the Great Patriotic War. They know how to suffer, and they know what they suffered. And it's basically, you want to do it again? All right, throw down the gauntlet. Because living here for 20 years, I'll tell you, gentlemen, Russian society is not very cohesive. It's a very individualistic place, actually. But when you start picking on them as a collective, they come together.
Yeah.
And they are a powerful punch when they want that idea. And all it does for all the Putin haters out there, it just keeps his public opinion ratings in the high 80s and low 90s. Good job, neocons. Good job, CNN. And that applies also to Iran as well. Okay, going to use lawfare and sanctions and all that. And it's totally counterproductive. It doesn't work. Give me one example when it did. It never, ever works. All right? So it's time to start thinking out of the box. But it's this cultural and political civil war continues in the U.S., and it's exporting it to Europe. Who knows what's in the cards moving forward here? As I started out with my answer is, the fear of not knowing what you don't know. That's paranoia. And when you're paranoid, you'll do some really totally irrational things.
Yeah, that's a good point, guys. On that, we're going to close out this segment. To everyone watching this video, we have a lot of good things coming up on YouTube. Think of this as kind of a test run. We apologize if it was a little bumpy here and there, but we're doing this as a test run, guys, because soon we'll be doing some live streaming and we'll be taking your questions via the live streaming on YouTube. So that's coming up really, really soon. And we apologize if there were some bumps, but we had a really interesting conversation and we hope you like it. And if you do like it, click on that subscribe button down below and click on that notifications bell to get notifications every time we push out a new video. And remember to visit the Duran shop, pick up a t-shirt, help support the Duran. Alexander Mercouris, editor-in-chief of the Duran, thank you very much. Peter Lavelle, host of RT's Crosstalk, thank you very much, guys. Keep on the lookout for our live streaming. It's going to be coming real soon, and we look really forward to hearing from all of you and taking all of your questions. Alexander Mercouris will be taking your questions. Peter Lavelle will be taking your questions. So we are going to be coming out with that very, very soon. Guys, we hope you liked this video. Until next time, take care.